Imagine walking your own neighborhood only to have an authority figure challenge every step you take, only to learn that when pride meets discipline, the tables can turn in the blink of an eye. This is not just another story of injustice, it's a battle for dignity on familiar streets where every moment counts. Stay with me as we unfold a real-life encounter that exposes power, prejudice, and the unwavering strength of one determined veteran. The story of Tiana Lawson. The late afternoon sun hung low over Baton Rouge, Louisiana, drenching cracked sidewalks and worn facades in a wash of golden light. Tiana Lawson moved confidently along the familiar streets, her every step measured and deliberate, a poise honed by years of rigorous discipline and a lifetime of knowing exactly who she was. Her deep, dark eyes surveyed the neighborhood like a seasoned guardian returning home to a place that had changed little, even after so many years away. She hadn't set foot in Baton Rouge for nearly 7 years. Since enlisting in the military and then burying her mother, she had ventured far from the quiet rhythm of her hometown. Now, returning as a civilian in simple clothes, a plain, well-fitted t-shirt, cargo pants, and worn sneakers, she carried an aura of authority that couldn't be erased by the absence of a uniform. Tiana's posture, which her father always called the stance of a warrior, radiated strength and purpose, a silent tribute to the values instilled in her from childhood. Passing by the same corner convenience store that still boasted a 2-for-1 sodas deal, she recalled the faded sign of the old barbershop and the familiar basketball court where neighborhood kids played with an intensity as if their lives depended on it. The sound of laughter, the aroma of fried catfish drifting from old Mrs. Johnson's restaurant, and the vibrant chatter from passers-by all mingled together, evoking memories of days long past. Yet even as nostalgia tugged at her heart, Tiana continued on, her duffel bag slung casually over her shoulder, a silent reminder of both the burdens and triumphs of her journey. A small group of teenagers huddled outside a corner store caught her eye. One of them, a boy who must have been around 16, glanced up and offered a respectful nod. "You're military, right?" he asked, his voice carrying a mixture of awe and reverence. Tiana met his gaze with a slight smile, thinking how even in the smallest interactions there was proof that her service had left an indelible mark. One of the boy's friends beckoned him inside, and just like that, the moment was over. That brief acknowledgement reinforced for Tiana why she had fought so hard in the first place, to uphold the honor and duty of serving her country. Yet as she walked on, memories of the years spent in war zones Kandahar, Fallujah, Mogadishu mingled with the calm of returning home. In her 20s, she had led elite teams through the darkest nights, under relentless enemy fire and amid the chaos of battle. In her 30s, she had struggled to come to terms with the unseen scars that war had inflicted upon her spirit. Now, at 40, Tiana questioned what home truly meant when the echoes of her past collided with the present. Her thoughts were suddenly interrupted by the slow crawl of a patrol car beside her, a sight utterly out of place in a neighborhood where officers typically sped by without a second glance. Tiana kept walking, attempting to ignore the car's invasive presence, but she knew too well the drill that was about to unfold. The driver's window rolled down, revealing a gravelly voice calling, "Excuse me, miss." Tiana halted and turned slightly to see a man in uniform step out. This was Officer Logan Briggs, a white man in his mid-40s sporting a crew cut and thick arms, and a smirk that betrayed his sense of entitlement. His mirrored sunglasses concealed his eyes, yet Tiana could feel them scrutinizing her as if she were an interloper on his territory. "Mind telling me what you're doing around here?" he barked, his tone laced with the unspoken assumption that a black woman, unadorned by a military uniform, must be up to no good. Tiana's expression remained impassive as she replied coolly, "I'm just walking. Where else would I go?" Her measured words echoed with the calm of someone who had faced far worse. Officer Briggs' smirk faltered ever so slightly. "We've had some break-ins around here," he explained, as if that excuse alone justified his intrusion into her freedom. Tiana met his gaze steadily. "You see me breaking into something?" she asked, her voice laced with quiet incredulity. The officer's jaw tightened, his hands momentarily twitching as if he sensed he was losing control of the situation. The air between them crackled with tension. Briggs was not merely looking to conduct a routine stop, he sought dominance. In a bid to assert his authority, he moved closer and commanded, "Hold on a second. Let us see some ID." Tiana did not budge. Trained to assess threats and always ready for any confrontation, she slowly reached into her pocket and produced her military identification. But instead of handing it over, she held it up for him to see, a deliberate, measured gesture of defiance. Briggs squinted at the ID, his gaze flickering between the card and Tiana's calm face. "Military, huh?" he drawled, his tone suddenly mocking. "Where exactly do you serve?" He pressed further, clearly not expecting an answer from someone he assumed was merely a civilian. Tiana's response was as controlled as it was pointed. "I serve my country in every way that matters," she said simply, refusing to indulge his unnecessary interrogation. The silence that followed was heavy with the weight of unspoken challenges, a silent battle of wills unfolding on a quiet street. Officer Briggs' frustration was palpable. His hand dropped to his belt as if reaching for a pair of handcuffs, a move that would have been unthinkable in any other circumstance. But here, in front of an increasingly attentive crowd, Briggs was desperate to assert his authority. His fingers brushed near his holster, and Tiana's eyes narrowed ever so slightly as she noted the subtle threat. The tension grew. A few curious bystanders had slowed their steps, their eyes fixed on the unfolding drama. Tiana maintained her stance, the cool determination in her eyes belying the years of hardship and conflict she had endured overseas. "I'm not doing anything wrong," she stated evenly, her voice calm and unwavering as she met Briggs' gaze. Briggs' words came out more forcefully this time, tinged with anger and a need to reassert control. "You expect me to believe you're just a veteran? That you've been out there fighting for this country?" He scoffed, the derision evident in every syllable. Tiana, however, was not here to indulge his insults. "You can run your checks on me," she said flatly, her tone leaving no room for further provocation. As if determined to make an example out of her, Briggs's eyes darted to a young woman standing nearby with her phone recording every moment. The officer's posture shifted, his shoulders squared slightly, and he attempted to salvage his authority by addressing the unseen witness. "You got a problem?" he demanded, his voice rising in volume as if the presence of an audience might somehow restore his pride. But Tiana was unyielding. "Stop putting on a show," she retorted, her tone cool and direct, a statement that rippled through the gathered crowd. Her calm defiance turned the tables, and it was clear that Briggs was now the one under scrutiny. His face flushed a deep red as he stepped closer, his hand reaching for her wrist in a move meant to intimidate. In a split second, Tiana's instincts took over. Trained to neutralize threats without resorting to unnecessary aggression, she deftly twisted her arm, breaking his grip before he could even fully make contact. The motion was smooth, precise, and utterly disarming enough to leave Briggs momentarily stunned as he found himself off balance. His attempt at control had backfired spectacularly, and the bystanders' murmurs of disbelief grew louder. A young woman with a recording phone stepped forward, her expression a mix of determination and disbelief as she captured every detail of the encounter. The crowd's attention intensified, every head turned, Every eye watched as Tiana held her ground with unwavering composure. Am I doing something wrong here? Tiana's voice, steady and resolute, cut through the tension like a clarion call for justice. Briggs' response was a stuttered attempt at reassertion. I don't appreciate this, he muttered, his authority crumbling in the face of Tiana's unyielding stance. Yet even as he reached again for his radio to call for backup, Tiana interjected, her tone laced with cool authority. Backup for what, Officer Briggs? For trying to intimidate an unarmed citizen. Her words, though measured, were charged with the weight of years spent in conflict and the determination to stand for what was right. At that moment, the situation escalated beyond a mere traffic stop. The crowd's murmurs transformed into audible whispers of support, and every onlooker recognized that this was not just another police encounter, it was a power struggle played out in real time. Briggs, realizing he was losing the narrative, tightened his grip on Tiana's military ID, his eyes burning with indignation as he spat out, I expect you to obey my commands. But Tiana's response was a lesson in restraint and control. If you put those cuffs on me, you're going to regret it, she warned evenly. The remark, delivered without malice but with undeniable conviction, sent a ripple of shock through the onlookers. Briggs' face contorted with anger as he lunged forward once more. In that critical moment, Tiana reacted with the precision of someone who had spent years in high-pressure combat zones. With a swift pivot and a slight redirection of her body, she turned his momentum against him, causing him to lose his balance entirely. In less than a heartbeat, the situation flipped. Officer Briggs, now off balance and visibly humiliated, staggered as the crowd gasped in unison. His attempt to intimidate had backfired in spectacular fashion, and for a few agonizing seconds, he appeared utterly disoriented. Tiana, meanwhile, remained as calm and composed as ever. Every movement was deliberate, every gesture a reminder of the discipline that had carried her through countless battles fought not with brute strength but with measured skill and unwavering determination. As the confrontation unfolded, the bystanders' excitement grew. A small group of onlookers began recording on their phones, their expressions ranging from shock to admiration. The air was electric with the shared realization that something momentous was taking place, a lesson in humility and respect being taught by a woman who refused to be cowed by unwarranted authority. Amid the commotion, a second patrol car pulled up, and out stepped Sergeant Ethan Montgomery, an older and seasoned officer known for his no-nonsense approach. His sharp blue eyes quickly took in the scene, shifting between the flushed, angry face of Officer Briggs and the unyielding calm of Tiana Lawson. Montgomery's presence brought a temporary hush over the crowd as he demanded an explanation in a voice that brooked no argument. Officer Briggs, explain yourself, Sergeant Montgomery said, his tone measured yet commanding. Briggs' jaw worked silently for a moment as he struggled to form a coherent reply. The humiliation was now public, his authority in tatters before the eyes of every resident on the block. Montgomery's gaze then swept over the cameras and recording phones held by the onlookers, an unspoken reminder that in the age of social media, every action is documented for posterity. Unable to regain his composure, Briggs mumbled incoherently, his earlier bravado now reduced to a trembling silence. Sergeant Montgomery turned his attention to Tiana, his expression softening ever so slightly as he asked, "Is that really what happened?" Tiana, without haste, recounted the incident in her calm, even tone. "He stopped me for no reason. I gave him my ID, and when he began accusing me and trying to assert control, I refused to let him intimidate me. I only acted to protect my dignity and the respect I've earned from serving my country." The sergeant's eyes narrowed as he examined Briggs' still-clutched military ID. Recognition slowly dawned on his face. "You're a Navy SEAL?" he asked, his voice a mixture of surprise and disappointment. Briggs' face flushed deeper as the truth once hidden behind his arrogance now stood in plain view. The realization that a veteran of elite service was standing calmly in front of him only added to his humiliation. "What were you thinking, Officer Briggs?" Montgomery pressed, his tone leaving little room for further excuses. The murmurs from the crowd grew louder, the public now a formidable witness to Briggs' crumbling authority. At that moment, Tiana's words carried even greater weight. "I didn't come home looking for trouble," she said, her voice steady as she continued, "I only wanted to walk my neighborhood in peace. Yet when you decided to treat me like a criminal for simply being who I am, you made a mistake." The tension in the air was palpable as Sergeant Montgomery addressed Briggs with finality. "Officer Briggs, you are relieved of duty effective immediately," he declared, his voice resonating with the authority of someone who had seen too much injustice to tolerate it any longer. Gasps and whispers spread through the crowd, each onlooker processing the magnitude of the moment a white cop publicly stripped of his power by a veteran who had nothing left to prove but her own dignity. Briggs' face contorted in rage, his hands curling into fists as he sputtered, "You can't be serious. Stop talking before you make this even worse." Yet Tiana's steady gaze did not waver. In silence, the crowd bore witness to the dramatic reversal, a man in uniform now reduced to a figure of shame, his pride in ruins and his authority a hollow shell. With the tension slowly dissipating, Sergeant Montgomery turned to Tiana and asked gently, "Lieutenant Lawson, do you wish to press charges?" For a moment, the air stilled, every eye fixed on Tiana. Her answer was deliberate and measured as she replied, "No. I did what I had to do to teach you a lesson you needed to learn." Her voice carried not malice, but a calm certainty, a reminder that some battles are won simply by standing one's ground. The crowd murmured in disbelief as Briggs' fate became sealed by the undeniable truth of the moment. Before Tiana could take another step, Briggs, now trying desperately to salvage his shattered dignity, spoke again in a quiet, stiff tone. "Why not press charges?" he managed, his voice trembling with a mix of anger and resignation. Tiana stopped and turned back to meet his gaze, her eyes calm yet resolute. "Because I already taught you the lesson you needed," she said, her tone final and unyielding. With that, she turned and walked away, each step echoing with the strength of a woman who had not only defended her honor but also illuminated the path for those who would follow her example. As Tiana strode down the sidewalk, her shoulders squared and her steps unwavering, the crowd's attention lingered on her departure. Whispers filled the air, some in admiration, others in disbelief. A young woman lowered her phone slowly after capturing every moment, while an older man across the street shook his head in silent acknowledgement that what had just transpired would not soon be forgotten. "That's what happens when you mess with the wrong person," someone remarked softly, a sentiment that resonated deeply among those who had witnessed the spectacle. Later, as the crowd dispersed and the patrol cars resumed their routine, Sergeant Montgomery remained on the scene, addressing concerned onlookers and assuring them that the footage would be reviewed thoroughly. Inside the precinct, Montgomery knew that the fallout would be significant. Officer Briggs' reputation, once steeped in misplaced authority, was now a public record of humiliation and misuse of power. While his career might not end immediately, the stain of his actions would haunt him for a long time. After the incident, a moment of reflection. Tiana finally found a quiet moment to catch her breath as she passed by the storefront of her childhood home. Looking into the glass, she saw not just her reflection but the legacy of a lifetime spent fighting battles on distant shores and now, right here at home. In that reflective moment, she felt a deep frustration welling up inside her. It wasn't anger at Officer Briggs alone, it was sorrow that the same prejudices she fought against abroad still persisted in the streets of her hometown. Taking a seat on the back steps of her father's old house, the worn wooden planks creaked beneath her, and the warm, familiar scent of cut grass mingled with the distant aroma of frying food from a nearby kitchen. Tiana allowed herself a moment of vulnerability, a rare pause to contemplate the cost of standing up for what was right. What does home mean anymore? She wondered aloud, her thoughts tinged with the bittersweet knowledge that even victories leave scars. A gentle creak at the screen door signaled the arrival of Uncle Darnell, a man whose graying hair and broad shoulders spoke of years spent witnessing life's struggles. He settled beside her, setting a bottle of iced tea on the steps with a soft clink. "You always sit like that when you're deep in thought," he remarked, his voice carrying both warmth and concern. Tiana offered a small, knowing smile. "I'm not planning on making the news today, Uncle Darnell," she replied, her tone both resigned and resolute. Uncle Darnell shook his head slowly. "Trouble finds us no matter how far we run," he mused, his eyes filled with a mixture of pride and sorrow. Tiana rolled the condensation on the bottle between her fingers, reflecting on the day's events. "I handled it the best I could," she admitted softly. "But what do these battles really change?" she asked, her voice carrying the weight of experience. Darnell considered her question for a long moment before responding thoughtfully. "Sometimes the fight isn't about winning every battle, it's about showing up, speaking out, and letting others know they don't have to shrink in the face of injustice." His words resonated with Tiana, offering a glimpse of hope that even small acts of defiance could spark a larger change in the hearts and minds of those watching. Their conversation drifted into a quiet moment of reflection as the afternoon faded into evening. Tiana's thoughts wandered to the countless nights spent in war zones, where every decision meant life or death, and now, a single, peaceful walk in her own neighborhood had turned into a test of courage. The duality of her existence, a warrior on distant battlefields and a defender of her own dignity at home, weighed on her. Yet, even in that internal struggle, there was a spark of determination. If her stand today inspired just one person to challenge authority when it was unjust, then every step she took had been worth it. The legacy of courage. Days later, the story of Tiana Lawson's encounter spread throughout Baton Rouge. Neighbors, community leaders, and even some local officers began questioning the nature of authority and accountability in their city. The incident, captured on countless phones and shared widely on social media, ignited debates about power, prejudice, and the responsibility of those in uniform. While Officer Briggs' actions would soon be scrutinized in an internal review, the impact on the community was unmistakable. Sergeant Ethan Montgomery's firm decision to relieve Briggs of duty was seen as a watershed moment, a reminder that respect and fairness must prevail over unchecked power. As more and more residents came forward to express their support for Tiana's courage, the narrative began to shift. What had started as a routine patrol turned into a catalyst for change, prompting discussions in town halls, community centers, and online forums alike. Tiana's calm resolve during the confrontation became a rallying cry. For many, her actions symbolized a break from a history of systemic bias, a declaration that one person's dignity should never be compromised by the abuse of authority. The young people who had once viewed the military with distant admiration now saw in her a living embodiment of the spirit of resistance. In schools and community gatherings, discussions flourished about the importance of standing up for one's rights, even when the odds seemed insurmountable. Yet even as the community slowly began to heal from the wounds of that day, Tiana wrestled with a deeper internal conflict. In quiet moments, she questioned whether her courageous act would ever truly change the pervasive prejudice that lingered like a shadow over her hometown. Do these battles ever truly end? She pondered silently, her mind replaying every detail of the confrontation with Officer Briggs. The scars of the encounter were not visible, but they were etched into her memory, a constant reminder of the cost of standing up against injustice. In the weeks that followed, Tiana found herself in unexpected conversations with local community leaders and activists. They spoke of policy changes, increased training for officers, and the need for greater accountability within the ranks of law enforcement. Although Tiana had never sought to become a symbol or a spokesperson, her actions had sparked something larger, a conversation that reached far beyond the confines of a single street in Baton Rouge. One evening, while reflecting on the day's events as the sky turned a dusky shade of blue, Tiana recorded a short message on her phone, a message not for the cameras, but for herself. "I walked away from that encounter with my head held high," she said softly, knowing that even if the world doesn't change overnight, someone out there might decide that it's time to stand up, too. Her voice was steady and sincere, a promise to herself and to all those who had witnessed her courage that she would continue to fight for the dignity and respect that every person deserved. In the background, the gentle hum of life in Baton Rouge continued. The old convenience store still flashed its 2-for-1 sign, the basketball court still echoed with the sound of youthful energy, and old Mrs. Johnson's restaurant still served up plates of crispy fried catfish. But now, beneath these familiar images, there was a sense of renewed awareness, a belief that one act of courage could ripple outwards and begin to mend the fractures in a community long divided by fear and prejudice. Regardless of whether you agree or disagree, the story of Tiana Lawson leaves an indelible impression, a complex portrait of power, resilience, and social prejudice. As the sunset paints the old streets of Baton Rouge in golden hues, Tiana isn't merely returning home. She stands as a symbol of inner strength, unwavering courage in overcoming stereotypes, and the burden of pressures imposed by those in authority. Some believe that her actions serve as proof of the indomitable spirit of modern warriors, individuals who have faced grueling battles on distant battlefields and now must confront a biased system in their own hometowns. They emphasize that in a society where power is often abused, courageous acts like Tiana's ignite new hope and help reshape the community's perception of the citizen's role in challenging authority. On the other hand, many question whether Tiana's actions are genuinely constructive or merely a spontaneous act of defiance in the face of injustice. They argue that although her actions clearly expose the weaknesses within the police system, can they truly create a sustainable turning point in the relationship between the community and law enforcement, or are they simply a fleeting moment of tension on the street? These differing viewpoints not only spark heated debates but also compel us to reflect on how modern society confronts issues of racism, prejudice, and power. Moreover, the story opens up further reflections on the value of self-determination and individual bravery. In a world rife with injustice, can one person really change the workings of a vast system? Or is her act merely a small beacon of light amid the darkness of inequality? Such questions not only add drama to the narrative but also encourage the audience to reflect, ponder, and perhaps set new personal goals. As the story draws to a close, it becomes evident that this isn't just a street confrontation, it's a rallying cry for change, a definitive statement on the power of courage in reclaiming justice and dignity. Could this brave act truly mark the beginning of a new era of transformation within the community, or is it merely a moment that reinforces the idea that in the fight against injustice, each of us must stand up? This is the question you must ask yourself, as the surge of thoughts and emotions intensifies with every moment of this unfolding story.